So, hi everyone. Welcome to another Fresh Fiction Video Book Club. I'm Samantha T, and I am so excited tonight because our guest author is #1 New York Times best-selling author Kelley Armstrong, here to talk about her rom-com Finding Mr. Right. But she is also one of the authors of one of my favorite paranormal series, which I'm not going to let her get away without talking about a little bit, but Women of the Other World. Welcome, Kelley. It's so good to have you today.
Hello, great to be here. Although I just noticed I chose to wear a gray shirt on a gray background. It looks great. I'm just going to totally blend in here.
It works. I'm wearing pink against pink backgrounds, so we're kind of in. It
Yeah.
works, right? So, Kelley, for some of our new readers, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you first get started writing?
I've been writing all of my life. I started with short stories when I was very young, moved into novellas in my teens. I was only when I was in my 20s that I started writing novels, mostly because I was told that, if I actually wanted to ever do this part-time, you really need to write novels. It's really hard to make even a part-time living off of short fiction. So started writing novels in my 20s, joining writers groups, taking writers classes. And the first novel that I got published was Bitten, which was the fourth novel that I wrote. The other three were trunk novels, practice, never to be seen again.
Okay, I have to ask, I'm curious about those trunk novels then. Were those
Mhm.
also paranormal? Were they a completely different genre?
No, they were all written to market. So they were all things that interested me, but were very clearly what the market currently wanted. So one of them is a female private eye, which was written in the 90s when we were seeing a sort of sudden upsurge of female private detectives. One was a post-apocalyptic adventure. There was a brief time when that was popular, and one was a harlequin because everybody said, Harlequin is really easy to get into. They lied. I mean, so it was a Harlequin intrigue because mystery sus- suspense is my usual genre. So I thought, okay, I can do this. I pitched it and they wanted to see it, so I finished writing it and then sent it in. It got rejected because, at least at the time, apparently Harlequin heroines don't break the bad guy's fingers to get information from him. I was just in the wrong place completely for that.
I think it's so interesting because I do not picture you as a Harlequin category romance writer. Your books always have these different spins on them, but I know so many authors that have pursued that. Being not being able to pursue that with Harlequin, I mean, how do you get over that element and pursue what is a better fit for you?
Yeah, and I think certainly at the time I was young, I was new, I was naive, um, and I feel like sometimes, romance obviously, especially Harlequin, gets such a bad rap that my feeling was that everybody said, "Oh, of course you're going to get published by Harlequin. You're a good writer. You'll get published." So when I didn't, I felt like, okay, that's it. I'm never getting published anywhere. When the truth is that Harlequin obviously has what they're looking for. Not easy to get into. Even today, when I'm doing writing classes, I will always get somebody saying, "I hear romance is easy to do. Maybe I should do that." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. That is, you have to be somebody who loves it and understands it." And at the time, well, while I read romantic suspense and I had read intrigues, I was certainly not the right writer for it. And it comes to understanding that. And then after that, I kind of gave up and said, forget this. I'm just going to write what I want to write. I don't care what's marketable. I don't care if this is the idea that everybody says will never sell. I want to write this book about a female werewolf. And, even if nobody buys it, I will have fun writing it. And not surprisingly, that was the one that sold because that was the one that I wrote for me. The one that I didn't care whether it sold. I wasn't looking at what was marketable or what people said was easy to break into. I was just writing it for me.
I love that. And like I said at the intro, I mean, it's always been one of my favorite series because I love the relationship with Elena and Clay and all the werewolves. But I've also always been fascinated. And I'm sorry, I'm going to gush a little bit because I've loved the series for so long. And it's my first time to talk to you. But I've loved how you evolved the series. So it wasn't always about Elena and Clay and their relationship and how they were growing, but you really built out all of these other secondary characters. And I think it was one of the first series I had really experienced that, where it's like, and it's just not another wolf, but you were pulling in all these other supernatural elements. So we were dealing with demons and witches and ghosts, and taking a character who was first introduced as a kid with Savannah, and then bringing her kind of full circle with the
Mhm.
culmination of the series. Was that something, like you said, breaking the rules, keeping it fresh for you as you were writing? Or was that always part of the plan to build
No.
more out of that universe?
It was totally keeping it fresh for me. Bitten was written as a standalone novel. In my original contract, I sold two books on it, but it was Bitten plus a second standalone supernatural thriller. That was what they were calling them back then, supernatural thriller. And after I submitted Bitten, it was done. They said, "Would you consider writing a sequel or starting a series, really?" And I thought about it and I thought, I'd love to write more on these characters, but how many books can I get out of this concept? Like, it was at that time just werewolves, and I was imagining a threat per year, like the annual threat of what they fight. And I was like, I can't do this. So I thought, well, what if I brought in other supernaturals, which then meant I had to do some sort of backflips to explain why there were no other supernaturals in Bitten. So I did that, and then decided I also wanted to branch out to other characters and come back. It is not the best marketing idea. I can tell you that right now. So many readers are like, I just want to stick with these characters, but I think it kept it fresh for me. So I would never have gotten near 13 books if I had said, I'm just going to do Elena and the Werewolf Pack.
Well, and keeping things fresh and from a writing perspective, is that also why you branched out into other genres? I mean, you have other series which also have the paranormal, because I love the Canesville and the visiting of the Welsh folklore, but you also have more straight up thrillers and mysteries, like again with the Nadia Stafford and some of your recent series. Is How do you enjoy moving around from genre to genre like that?
I love that. I mean, the Nadia Stafford was the first branch out, and it was because my two big loves are fantasy and thrillers. So sort of Bitten kind of combines that. You get thrillers within a fantasy paranormal setting. I wanted to do straight up mystery, did a Nadia, and then Canesville. I kind of again combined them in a different way, more clearly mystery, where each book has a murder to solve. And then now I've done straight up mystery with my Yukon set Rockton series, and I've done time travel mystery with my Rip Through Time. That one lets me do something different. I'm doing historical and I'm doing time travel, so it has that fantastical element and something new. So you can see that every time I'm like, what can I do that's different, rather than what can I do that's similar? Because I really feel like if you're going to keep, for me at least, keep going this long and still love what I am doing, I've got to be constantly mixing it up, saying, what else do I want to try? Middle grade, young adult, horror, rom-com. I mean, it becomes, I read everything, so I have ideas in every genre. And the fact that publishers have allowed me to do other genres and not pigeonholed me as you are a fantasy writer or you are a mystery writer has been wonderful.
Do you find you need different tricks to get into the right mindset because of the different genres? And even more so when you are moving from an adult storyline to the YA and then to the middle grade?
Mhm. I find that writing, moving between middle grade, or sorry, adult and young adult is not as difficult as moving between very different genres. Now, middle grade's a different beast. That I really need to adopt a different voice, different mindset. So much is different there. Um, young adult is more I am looking at a plot that's going to work for that time in their life, which isn't a whole lot different for me than if I say my characters for this book will be 30 and my characters for this book will be 40. I mean, I'm still going to be dealing with the different times of life. 20, 16. If you go down to a middle grade, again, a whole lot different. But biggest issue is if I'm say moving from writing romantic comedy to horror. That does take a bit of, I kind of need that time to write into it and then go back and fix it, or my rom-coms will be dark and my horror will have a whole lot of comedy in it.
Well, tell me about the inspiration behind Finding Mr. Right, because it is a rom-com, and lots of areas in this that I'm laughing, and I'm wondering again, is some of this a little bit of getting out the normal angst of being a writer and having to go on tour and all of some of those struggles? But I was surprised when I first heard about it. I was like, wait, this is a rom? Is this a straight up rom com? What's going on?
It really was. I I joke about it, about saying that I accidentally sold a rom-com, which is more like I accidentally wrote one. I mean, it was not normally I go into something like I am choosing to write this. I'm choosing to write horror. I'm choosing to write mystery. This one was that the idea came to me, and it was a rom-com idea. And my first reaction was, I don't write rom-coms. I don't write straight up romance. I write romantic subplots, but again, I find that writing straight up romance is daunting. It really is, because I feel like you are having to do so much with emotions and conflict and everyday life. And like, I was joking with my editor. We were editing book two, and I'm like, "Can I just kill somebody? Can I just like, I can't do that here." So there is a whole lot more that I have to work with. I can't cheat and just kill somebody if my pace things off. Um, so the concept came. It was rom com. I started working on it years ago. Put it aside because I don't write that. Um, then I was coming up here. I'm in the Yukon now. I was coming up here a few years ago, and I was watching. Oh, now I'm totally going to blank on it. It is the romance rom-com adventure with the woman who and her and the guy that plays her cover a model, and that reminded me a bit of this one. So I went back, pulled it up, talked to a writing friend. She said, "Well, go ahead and write it, indie it." So I was going to write it, indie it, do something. And I told my agent that I was working on this, and she said, "Can I at least see it?" So I sent her the first, 5,000 words, and she called and said, "Please let me take this out." So yeah, so I was like, okay, it's not like it's not something that I've normally written, which again, very daunting. I found this writing this way more daunting than saying I'm going to write horror, I'm going to write anything else, because I'm saying that I'm going to write something that's going to be romantic and funny. And while I like to include romance and comedy in all my books, it's much different to say I want you to find this romantic and funny and risk failing.
Oh wow. And you've been writing and having books published for almost 25 years. So that's
Mhm.
really saying something that you're finding these different elements daunting. Did you have other people that you were bouncing ideas off of hey, what about this scene? Is this going to work? Or no, this one doesn't. Let's strip this out. Or you're finding the wrong tone, or Or again, no, you can't kill somebody here. Sorry, you've got to power your way through and fight the patriarchy, but in a different
Up
way.
the stakes some other way. Yeah, no, I had a lot of people that I was bouncing things back and forth at various stages because of my uncertainty. So way more than anything
Mhm.
else. I was far less confident in this. So it was I have a lot of romance writing friends. So bouncing ideas off of them, working things through with them, having them read it. Just having a lot of people reading and asking them questions, and most of them found it funny that I was that uncertain when normally I am the one that they are coming to with writing questions, and I'm the one asking them. So yeah.
Now, I have to wonder, were there elements of the YA dystopian zombie story that you at times wanted to, okay, well, actually, let me take a break and maybe write part of this story within the story?
I had fun with that because that is more what I write. So it was a bit of an in joke that the book that she writes is more what I write. And for her, this book breaks out and it's huge. When really, let's face it, we all know that zombie dystopian are not the currently hot genres. But I wanted to just do something that was as un-rom-com like as possible for my character story, and also something that was way more the sort of thing that I would write. So then, when I did have her talking about what was happening in her book, I could do that very, very naturally. And I wrote a little pre-order bonus for it that was a short story set in that book because again that is my usual thing, so that would come very easily to me. If I'd said that she wrote a literary novel, you wouldn't have heard anything about this literary novel other than like the title, because it wouldn't have been something that I felt I could describe more.
Mhm. Well, and I think that's the other thing that resonated for me so much with this novel is, okay, yes, it's the rom-com element, and you love the relationship and the different humorous elements that come into play, but there are also so many aspects of the book that I'm like, I can see this happening, where it is, okay, I'm uncomfortable about going out and putting myself out there for
Mhm.
the readers, or I've been struggling so long, let me go ahead and submit it because we all sometimes wonder, would it have a different reaction if it was under a male's name versus my real name? Is it because of the material in the book, or are they reacting to that picture on the cover? And everything from that initial element to going on tour and how everything kind of uh, steamrolled from there. I mean, were there other elements that you're pulling in from your experiences, your friends' experiences, just kind of seeing the writing world that you're like, oh no, here's another aspect that I can really pull in and put a good twist on as it progresses the story?
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't have written this as a debut author. This
Mhm.
is, 25 years of publishing experience. So there are lots of in jokes. There are lots of jabs. I joked to my editor, or to my agent. Our publisher is actually going to want it when I am taking some pot shots at various aspects of traditional publishing. Because there are things in there that I'm sure there are some things that readers might say, "Oh, that would never happen." It's like, no, trust me, we have heard these stories. It happened to a friend, or this or that. Some of it is obviously going to be built up for comedic effect. But if you're looking at things like the movie meetings, oh yeah, trust me, I have exaggerated a bit, but not a whole lot, on what it's like to meet with Hollywood types, what it's like to go to panels, what it's like to go to signings, all of that, and sometimes what it's like to look at male writers, male authors, and what they get, especially, and that's why it was YA. In
Mhm.
the YA realm, there certainly were times when we were seeing more male writers in there. There were certainly times when I think that the female writers were looking and saying they're getting a whole lot of extras and a whole lot of attention. And you don't want to say it's because they're male, because then someone's going to say, well, maybe it's just because their book is better.
Right.
Right? So you kind of dance around it saying, I feel like these things, I feel like they're getting business class seats and we're getting economy seats, literally. I feel like they are getting more attention, that their books are being put into general fiction while ours are only being put into teen fiction. And we feel like this may have something to do with the gender differences, but we don't want to say much because guaranteed someone would just say, well, maybe it's just that they are better writers.
What was the biggest surprise for you when you were writing this rom-com?
The biggest surprise for me was how easy it flowed. It really, and that was why I continued with it. I expected that I would write a couple of scenes and say, no, 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 not for me. And I didn't, and kept on writing it. And certainly, there are always things within a novel that surprise me, that are like, I didn't intend for it to go there. Certainly, I've got those animal encounters. Those did not go. If the original outline did not have porcupine encounters, grizzly encounters, but you're up here. That those certainly, that just seems to be part of what happens. So you would get lots of elements that were not what I had in mind, and lots of things that I thought I would have put in that I didn't.
Well, Kelly, I want to switch over to what we call our fresh fiction facts.
Mm-hmm.
These are meant to be rapid fire questions with answers, hopefully off the top of your head. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Who would you most want to be stuck in an elevator with?
Oh, I should warn that I am horrible at these answers, because I'm like, I don't know. So if we're going to talk writers, let's just say, because my brain goes, we're talking writers, I'm talking male writers, I would Stephen the King. So there. So you see, that's just, I'll just jump from one spot
Hey,
to
that's
the
what this
other.
is
I
meant to
would love to.
be.
Yeah.
And next time you come in, we'll ask some questions and you're going to give different answers. It's
And
okay.
I
Don't
will give
worry.
you totally different answers next time.
Okay, other than books, what is
Mhm.
something that you own a ridiculous amount of?
Oh, a ridiculous amount of hiking boots, and a ridiculous amount of hiking boots, and a ridiculous amount of messenger bags, laptop bags. For somebody who does most of their work inside, never leaving their house, I have way too many messenger bags, laptop bags. I am always like, ooh, look at this one. It has more pockets. So yeah.
Oh, okay, I can understand that. I have my own collection of different messenger bags and
Hmm.
need
More
I need to
more
figure out
pockets.
ways
See.
to switch it out. Yes. What is the craziest thing that you have bought online or as seen on TV?
Interesting. I've bought online, or I've seen on TV. There are certainly are things that I occasionally buy and just think, why have I done that? They are often writing related. Um, Expensive pen. There was that thing
Okay.
where I wanted a Mont Blanc pen, because I felt like, as a writer, if I had made it, if I had a Mont Blanc pen, that I could take around to my signings. I took it to two signings before I lost it, and 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 that was fine, because I didn't like the way it wrote
No.
anyway. So yeah.
What luxury item can you not live without?
Good coffee. I am a coffee snob, so coffee is fresh roasted, fancy coffee machine. Yes, I am a snob when it comes to a coffee. Fashion, not so much, but coffee, yes.
Now, do you switch around your different coffee blends and try new things, or do you stick with the same tried and true?
I tend to be so, getting picky. I tend Most of the time I am getting Ethiopian single origin, and also certain flavor. There are certain flavor things, and I like fig, date, etc. Although I don't actually like figs and dates. I like that flavor pro- profile in a coffee. So yeah. See, really picky and weird.
You've been kidnapped, but they've
Mhm.
returned 2 hours later because you will not stop talking about what?
I will not stop talking about probably, probably hot flashes. I'm I'm at that age, and it would just be the like, oh my god, it's so hot in here. Yeah, yeah. I would just
No, but the
they would
thing is,
send me
I think
back.
that's a good thing, right? I'm finding more and more as I'm approaching that age myself, these are not things people talk about. So the more it's talked about and out
Mhm.
there, I think that is all to the good.
Yeah.
What is something that can take you immediately out of a story, be it a book or a movie?
And so if I'm watching or listening to somebody else's plot holes, plot
Mhm.
holes, because I blame the fact that my former job was coding. I have a very coder brain. So logic holes, some kind of logic gap where I'm like, wait a minute, that makes no sense. And I know that 95% of people won't even notice, and I will just stop dead and just go, that makes no sense. And then I'm hoping that they backfill it and fix it. And if they don't, I'm really cranky because I will then say to my husband, my kids, my friends, whoever saw the movie with me, I'll say they could have fixed that with one line right here to explain that a logic gap.
What terrible movie do you legitimately enjoy?
I don't even know. I mean, I've seen a whole lot of terrible movies. I did not mind Argyle for about 65% of it. I was there for 65%. Even as I was saying this is not a good movie. I was there for 65%. And if they'd made a few changes, they would have carried me all the way through, and I would have said that was a bad movie, but it was my kind of bad movie.
Would you rather go back in time to meet your ancestors or travel into the future to meet your descendants?
Back in time. Much rather go back in time because I'm terrified to go into the future. So
Now,
yes, I would
would
go.
you want to go back to Victorian England where you set your books, or would it be a different time period?
I think Victorian would be. See, then as a writer, I have to say Victorian because my brain would be like, "Ooh, think of all the things I could see and get right." Because when you're writing historical, you constantly feel like you're not quite getting some nuances. And I could just, go back and get all those nuances and make that part so much richer.
Mhm. What is your most dog-eared or reread book that you're going back for research or just for pure enjoyment?
Okay. If I'm going back for just pure enjoyment, one that I have read far too often is probably going to be Watership Down.
Really?
I I read that every 5 years or so. So to get different layers of what, and I find that now I look at it very differently than I did when I first read it when I was about like 10. So yes, I go back every now and then to see new things and to also reflect back on what intrigued me before or things that I see now that I'm like, okay, this is not nearly as intriguing, enticing as it was then. So it's kind of like reflecting on myself as a person.
Mhm. That's one of the books that's on my list that I need to go back and reread because it's one I tease my dad about of like, hey, this is on the list of where you've traumatized me as a child
Yeah.
of watching the cartoon and seeing that movie and reading the book and
Mhm.
certain scenes. I'm like, those have really stuck with me over the years. But I've never gone back and really reread it as an adult,
Mhm.
which I
It is very different because as when I first read it, when I very first read it, parts of it would have been above me, like where I was not getting nuances, etc. And when you're a teen and you read it, you're like getting all the stuff because it all seems so deep. Everything seems so deep when you're a teen. And then you go back later on and you're like, okay, some of this is a little over a blown, a little, yeah. So yeah, it is. I still really enjoy it. I think it really impressed me when I was young because the idea of a fantasy novel being for adults. At that time, I really thought that if you were going to have a novel about rabbits, clearly this was a children's book. And I knew that it wasn't because I had an aunt who recommended it to me and said, no, no, it's not a children's book. It's this massive book. And so the idea that you could take something like rabbits and make such a layered book out of it was amazing to me and probably influenced the fact that now as an adult, I wanted to write fantasy. It wasn't stuff for kids.
Mm. Okay, if you knew it was real, what paranormal character would you most want to encounter? See, normally I limit this, but you've written so many different ones. I want to throw it all out there. Werewolf,
So
vampire,
what pair?
what?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What I most want to encounter. Well, you see, everyone thinks werewolf, but no, that would be scary. And definitely not, vampires. So I think if I was wanted to, it would be from the stuff that I write, a necromancer, or in a general, somebody who can speak to and raise the the dead. I always find that the most interesting power, and also they're probably not going to kill me anytime soon because they can talk to me now or when I'm dead. No, they'll probably just let me be. But werewolves, vampires, I'm taking too big of a chance there.
I like your reasoning there. Okay. Okay, as readers, we are always wanting to know what's next. What are you working on now? Do we have another rom-com perhaps in the future?
You do. That's actually what I'm currently editing. It's the next one. So in Finding Mr. Right, Chris has an older sister, Gemma, who is recently divorced and has not written in years. So the fact that he's now with Daphne gives her that boost to write. What she loves to read and to write is romance. So she was working on romance, was not selling it, not unlike Daphne. But in her case, people said, her writing group people said, the problem is your main character. He's too nice. People want alpha asshole characters. So she decided, okay, she could do that. She went back and went back to her first asshole from high school and based the character on him. And he's a hitting retirement enforcer for the NHL. So this is unexpectedly a hockey romance. I know that became popular, but it wasn't when I pitched it. So yeah, so it is that she writes it and he's told, and he's very flattered because he hasn't actually read the book. So it is the working title for it is Writing Mr. Wrong.
Hey, Kelly, you are busting through all of my different ideas here. I mean, rom-coms, a hockey romance. I mean, this is a whole new world essentially. I mean, just completely broadening things. But with that, where then is the best way for our readers and listeners to keep in touch with you and find out exactly when that book is going to hit shelves?
Yeah, best way is on my website. I do keep it very up to date, so you'll be able to see right from the front page what I've got out and what I've got coming out. And so I do keep that up, and that is really the best way. Otherwise, Facebook, or Meta, whatever they want to call it, is the one where I am most likely to remember to mention all new releases and the most likely to be giving away arcs and bookmarks and everything else.
Fantastic. Well, I will be on the lookout for this next rom-com so it can join the Finding Mr. Right along with all of my collection of the women of the other world, which is on my bookshelf. But Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today. I've really enjoyed talking with you, but stick around for
Thank
the
you.
happy hour with our readers.
Yeah, thank you.